Welcome to the BNB Investing Podcast for real estate investors. Fix and flippers and realtors exploring investment options with Airbnbs and short-term rentals through acquisition, leasing, or management to generate consistent monthly revenue. Join us for a chat with experienced and successful short-term rental investors to hear their story of how they got started and created wealth by building scalable businesses. We also explore various service providers and lenders that help make our businesses more efficient and maximize revenue in this awesome sharing economy. Welcome your host, Rich Munroe.
Hey everyone, it's Rich Munroe with BNB Investing Group. Thanks for jumping on with us this week. I've got a good friend of mine, Rob with STR Accommodations, based in Austin, Texas. We're going to hear all about his story. So BNB Investing Group is a group that's been recently formed where we have a lot of real estate investors that are wanting to get more information about short-term rentals and about the model and about the process, as well as seasoned veterans like Rob and a few of other folks that we've had on this weekly broadcast. And so we hope to basically share with you, a lot of what we've experienced. And so as you guys are getting started, you can kind of look and see at the different nuances of the three different types in the model. You can either manage somebody's properties, you can do rental arbitrage, or you can basically buy properties and do short-term rentals with it. And so we're going to do a deep dive with Rob today. And thanks again for joining us. Do me a favor in the comments, if you could just put a quick yes out there, if you can hear me okay, and we'll jump right into it. So Rob, thanks for jumping on this week.
Rich, thanks for having us.
So when did you get started with short-term rentals?
So I go pretty far back. Our first short-term rental was actually in 2011. Was living in Boston, heard about Airbnb, heard of there was a peer-to-peer conference, and some of the people from Airbnb were there, just talking about how peer-to-peer business models were disrupting the space. And it came about. We had a 3-bedroom beach house, just a couple houses behind the beach, and just found ourselves in need to kind of offset some of the costs of the house. And we rented a room out. We just literally put a bed in there, rented it out, and we were off to the races. We did that for a few months. And then fast forward, I moved for the oil field down to Houston, Texas. And all of a sudden, we moved kind of just towards the top of where then everything started going downhill. And within a year and a half, we just found ourselves at the bottom. We lost everything, So instead of going bankrupt, my family kind of just took whatever money we had, paid all the bills off, and then the whole family moved back up to New England, where I'm originally from, in Connecticut, and we'd already had houses there, and I decided to stay. I wanted to stay here. Frankly, found a great church. I was doing prison ministry, fell in love. And so when that happened, my parents said, hey, you got that spare room, and we got a king bed. We don't want to, we don't have enough room to take it. Do you just want to take it? And so I said, yeah, you know what? I'll do that. And it's actually funny. I'm at the building now where we now manage, several of the units, but I ended just throwing the bed in, and actually it was a host from outside of Houston that stayed with me first, and they said this place is great, and that's kind of how it started. So instead of doing a roommate, maybe $500-600, maybe $700 maximum with utilities, I was doing $900 to $1,500 just on a 1-bedroom. And so at that point, I was like, hey, this is great. It paid all my bills, and very. So
was there any issues with like shared bathrooms, shared kitchens, anything like that?
So they got a private bedroom and bathroom, which, if you're doing it, that's the quintessential best. When they got a private bedroom bathroom, that's a key. We do have, actually, I still help a friend, and she's got a shared, and they kind of have a Jack and Jill between. So we have some annoying things where somebody forgot to unlock the door from the other side stuff. But no, my bedroom was up in the loft. And so it was like, they had the whole first main level. It had the bedroom, bathroom, everything on it. And so I really kind of made myself scarce when they were there. I just wanted to be there. Hey, my name's Rob. I'm the host. And then kind of went out pretty quickly. And then that went into trying a few weekends. Hey, I packed everything up, took my whole bedding off, got new bedding, put it on, threw everything in my closet, locked my closet, and then started staying at friends, or more frequently at my now wife's house. She's my girlfriend back then. And then went from there over to doing, it was either a June or July, or a July and August in like 2015. And I ended up renting out the whole entire place, the 2-bedroom, 2-bath, and I made like $5,600 a month. It was unbelievable.
That's awesome. And so let's pause there for just a second, because I want to make a comment. I mean, you were a pioneer in that model, because there's large groups actually that I know that are here in Atlanta, for example, that are engaging with large apartment complexes, and they go in, and instead of trying to do rental arbitrage or that angle, they'll go in and say, okay, we want to make an offering to your tenants that allows your tenant to come in with a 12-month lease, but they have the ability to short-term rental it, whether it's a room like you did, or if it's the whole place, and to supplement their income. Housing costs are rising, and it's a big issue with rents going up. And so these apartment complexes are engaging with professional companies like yours and like mine, letting us manage the short-term rental for the tenant that's there, and they'll do just that. They'll go stay at a boyfriend or a girlfriend for the weekend, and they'll rent that thing out for $200 or $125 a night, and they're making extra money. And so there's an entire push for that, and it's kind of like relieving the housing market where it's constrained. But you're a pioneer of that. I mean, there's a whole business behind that now where people just focus on that niche. So I just wanted to make that comment.
No, I mean, absolutely. I mean, they're getting a lot more. I mean, we discussed at one of the events that we were going at the conferences about fractional ownership and doing developments where half the side is ownership and then the other half is fractional or slash, hey, come whenever you want to. And it used to be the heyday where you bought a second lake house and you made enough money, just to give yourself cover the burden and maybe get a couple weeks or a couple months out of it. And now, again, a lot of investors are parking cash in a capital class A asset, and they're leveraging it. And it's no longer the former day of the vacation rentals. They're ATM cash flow machines, and exactly. As long as you manage them and leverage them properly, then it's an amazing, good investment strategy. The capital
Very
class
cool.
A assets delivering bond-like volatility, equity-like returns, and even though we are seeing the maturity of the industry, we surely have exited the infancy, and I think we're now in the adolescent stage, but there's still a lot of room to grow. And me and you have talked multiple about the whole verticals and even owning all the downline of turning all the expenditures into incomes.
Right. Just one last comment about that last topic. So I think Airbnb recently has done an apartment listing category for those buildings that want to make their apartments available on Airbnb. So it's an interesting new niche that's coming out there. That's a quick way to get started with short-term rentals, frankly, to kind of learn the business.
And it's nice because, there is a clear distinction between real estate and between hospitality. And a lot of people think they're two in hand, but, the underlying asset is real estate, certainly. But at the end of the day, the hospitality is the focus, in this short-term rental Airbnb, because people don't just want an accommodation. They want a great place to stay, wonderful food to eat, and fun things to do. And that's where we truly excel. And I like seeing companies where they're like, hey, we're just the property manager. This is not what we do. And like I said, they bring a company like myself or you in to be able to handle that.
Yeah, absolutely. So where'd you go from there?
So, started renting out my place, 2-bedroom, 2-bath. And then from there, and I'm actually sitting in the storage room I was showing you earlier. I ended up meeting a family that they owned 11 of them. So they owned 9 1-bedrooms and 3 2-bedrooms. 12 of them. Sorry. Yeah. 12. And so in that aspect, they said, hey, we're looking for somebody to help us to do marketing, and boom, there was my first big client. So we as a company, we own arbitrage, we co-host, and then we manage. And I distinguish co-host as kind of hey, we're here to help, and then the owner's actively involved. And that could be, we just do the digital marketing and communications, and we handle everything on the digital side. The owner's doing the cleaning and the maintenance, or even if we kind of, get a little bit in there. And so
how does
arbitrage?
I would just back up a second. So on the co-hosting, how does the management fee work for that? What is that management fee typically when you do that arrangement?
Depending on how much we're involved, it can kind of come somewhere between about 10 to 15%, depending on how much tech. So there are some people that, they're comfortable. They just want to be Airbnb and VRBO. We, of course, are trying to go more turnkey. So, for example, there's direct booking. We've got other partners. We use Rentals United, so we can put them across 60 to 80 different platforms. So we kind of made it to where we have a gold, silver, and a bronze package, and we can be involved as little or as much as you want us to. And of course, the bronze starts off as that digital, side, and then going up to the gold, which then is your white glove service and handling everything.
So I got to tell you, in our management business, I found it very hard to divide and conquer and lose control, especially over the cleaning and the maintenance. And so how do you deal with that in a co-host arrangement?
That's a fun situation. I mean, you just have to take you just have to take the punches as they come. It's difficult to not be able to have control over that, but a lot of that tends to be that we've got some pretty good processes on the full management side that we encourage our co-host owners to follow that process. You do get some hosts that, again, especially we're getting a lot of clients where with the shift of the industry and especially Airbnb, hosts that have been, going for two to 4 years, hundreds of reviews, they're just not visible anymore and they're not getting the bookings. And so, they reach out to us for assistance in that. And we really have to ask how their process is and try to scrutinize that. We do have some fight back. That's, one of those situations where we did have, 180 doors and now we've cut down, is because you do come into those kind of budding situations where you're like, well, this is what we found successful. And they're like, well, I'm going to do this. And it's like, well, hey, you hired me to be the professional. Can we try this out?
So at your peak, you were at 180 doors. And over what period of time was that?
To grow up to that?
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say, I'd say I started going really hardcore about 2017, as in it. So at that point, I had a men's group, and I was bartending at the time. I was also working for some beverage brands in the liquor industry. And I was doing this, that was kind of my full income until I really, got into this full time. And some of my brothers at Men's Breakfast just kind of said, hey, what are you going to do here? You got this wife that you're getting married to, you're getting older. Are you going to make a go at this? You just keep kind of being on the fence. And so I took a big jump. I stopped bartending and I stopped. And I mean, I was making, great money back then. And so, but I stopped bartending and stopped doing, tastings and events. And I just went gangbusters. So at that point, I just started becoming more actively involved. Richard Fertig, one of my mentors, he'd come down and he went and toured 15 cities. It was a vote thing. And when he came down, we had like 30, 40 people. And he said, hey, man, you got to really continue this. And so when he came down, I went to my first master class in Nashville in 2019. And then really from there, everything changed completely. I had a full mindset that I wanted to get into. I've worked in 8 different industries. In my previous, I was predominantly in sales and marketing. And every time I left the industry, I left with nothing. Yeah. And so it's just like, you get tired. I mean, you're making great money, but it's just like, you have nothing to show for it. And so I really enjoyed this because even after the oil field where people make a lot of money, I'm just like, I have nothing to show for it. And so I wanted something that I actually had some substance. And I loved this because the whole entire job was leveraging and making a premium on real estate. And so the idea was, OPP, OPM, other people's money, other people's properties. And that would lead to us building cash flow, which then we could in turn, start our own properties. And of course that led us into some extra cash to arbitrage. We did some arbitrage deals. Now we're in an aspect where we're partnering with clients. Instead of pointing to clients and say, hey, go buy this property and we'll manage it. We're now saying, hey, go buy this property with us and we'll manage it. And not only that, but we're trying to raise capital because we're strategic. We're really trying to build, like I said, that underlying common theme across a diverse landscape. So we're in Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, and Austin. We're now hunting and looking regionally. What are the most complementary locations? Going to Google Travel Trends, going to the Chamber of Commerce. We all have access to those resources, and they're free and inexpensive, if anything. But we just go, hey, who's coming to Houston? Where are they going alternatively? In our off season, so we could start trying to build complementary locations, and that's kind of where we're at now.
Very cool. Yeah, that's one of the reasons why we're in the Atlanta and then the Tampa market for that reason, so that you've got some offset. When you're slow in one area, you can be a little bit busier in the other area. So that makes sense. So when you were at your peak with 180 units, what kind of operation does it take to run that many units? From a people and resource standpoint.
So we had about. Let's see. There was me. So about almost 3 years ago, I brought in a business partner. He surprisingly was actually one of my Airbnb guests. So that's kind of one of the cool things about our story is Airbnb guest meets Airbnb host and creates one of the best hospitality companies in the world. They actually stay with me at one of my shared accommodations. So this is before I left my first Texas Airbnb, and they came and they stayed in that shared, house, private room environment. And I'd like to say that I recommended my church. So 2.5 years later, we met back up at church at marriage classes. And then 2.5 years later, we became friends. And next thing I know, I'm asking him to be a partner of my business company.
Very
cool. So I brought him on. He's a physics engineer from aerospace and ballistic weaponry. So he came in and, I'm sales, and visionary and 50,000 feet. He came down and, got into the trenches, ripped up and tore up everything in our standard operating procedures and completely redid everything. So got us on Slack, got us on Trello, started implementing and even becoming a geek in the data. Right now he's actually going to be at that conference with Kenny and them and talking about data. Specifically, the most important thing is the revenue data, and so I love it that I'm a geek and he's a geek about it. It really complements. We say the yin and yang, or we say we're like the Yoda to the Luke and Layla. Yeah. So, but, really heavily, we brought on easy care, easy inspections. We tried a former PMS, but Hospitable was always our base. Again, a powerful tool. I was running 180 properties with Hospitable, but we were at that time just Airbnb, VRBO, dipped a little bit into Booking.com. Still have hesitations because, I just, too many chargebacks. You got to do it. It's a completely different platform. But, and then we're now onboarding a new PMS. So we have 10 staff members. So we brought on a girl who had cleaned Airbnbs for 5 years, was working at the coffee shop in our corporate, in our co-op working building. And just one day we gave her a job and thankfully we didn't put her to cleaning, although you think you would. So she had experience doing SOP. This girl rewrote our whole entire scope of work, started putting in our whole entire vendor vetting team. So now, any area we go into, every property has at least a 3-tier vendor for all of our, plumbers, cleaners, handyman, landscapers, everything. So that way, we know if one can't, then the next, and then the next, and the bottom's usually your most expensive, like John Moore. You're going to pick up the phone and call John Moore, and they're going to, they'll come at 2 a.m. and you'll pay the most money. But so technology is very heavy in that aspect. So, easy care, easy inspection does our maintenance and our housekeeping. The accounting was the hardest thing. That was one of my biggest faults. And anybody doing this, I highly encourage you to get on top of your accounting as early as possible.
Yeah.
Now all our vendors are paid through QuickBooks. Now all of our receipts and invoices and everything are all tied in. So when it comes down to doing the bookkeeping, it's pretty easy on just exporting all our raw data. Again, my business partner, Cody, created an amazing, owner's dashboard thing, all just where all of our, raw data gets put in and it just comes to a summary and it looks brilliant, So
from what I'm hearing, you're utilizing a lot of technology to take a lot of automation in place to kind of help with the volume. And then, so from a people standpoint, at its peak, how many people did you have, besides you and Cody and the young lady you spoke about?
So then on top of that, so then we brought in a bookkeeper, which she actually recently left us. So now we're going to probably go to a VA bookkeeper. But then we have, at our max, we had 10 VAs. Right now we're at 7. And so we use a group. So we actually switch them up. Some are from the Philippines and some are from El Salvador. We love them. They're amazing and they bend over backwards. And all of them have been with us, for quite a while. And so it's amazing how the roles, like some of them are just vendor team. Some of them are customer service. Some of them, are our night team. We do monitor our cameras. We monitor all our cameras at night during strategic hours and watch the foot traffic. And so if the team, the customer service takes a reservation and they don't communicate much and it's a last minute booking and they have no reviews, we have a risk index score. And so they're flagging that and saying, hey guys, we're going to take this, but let's be mindful of this. And just, hey, they're not really communicating a lot. And so in that aspect, we put all these various different standard operating procedures together. And we're always scrutinizing them too, we were talking today on our group that just, giving the staff more guidelines and more flexibility to do their job and grow into it,
Well, a lot of people don't realize, when you're able to run a multi-million-dollar business with technology and mostly virtual assistants, it takes away. You look at all the other industry options. I mean, you're staffing up 30, 40 people deep to generate that kind of revenue in most industries. And so that's what I like about this model. You can make it scalable. And, I think we've been running at 75 listings with 4 virtual assistants for the most part and basically 0 employees, right? So everything gets outsourced to the cleaning team and to the maintenance team. So that's definitely an efficient way to run it. And it's kind of the key to success, I think, in being scalable and just kind of adding units to that and adding more VAs as you need to. So definitely think that makes sense. So tell us a little bit about, you're in 3 different markets, albeit they're probably average 2 to 3 hour driving distance between the 3 markets.
So we're actually we're in Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, Austin. We've got 1 property out in the Ozarks of Fairfield Bay, Arkansas. And then during the peak season, which is about 3 to 4 months, we actively engage and consult for a boutique hotel down in Playa del Carmen, Mexico. Because the other months, the other 7, 8, 9 months, they're just not worthwhile because they switch over to your digital nomad kind of mentality. But when that peak season is, which is from about right after Thanksgiving all the way till about Valentine's Day, it's gangbusters, and they can make a higher revenue rate. But yeah, I mean, so again, we're trying to get more away from where we're at. But that's kind of the markets we have. And so I do enjoy right now that, it's about 2.5 to 4 hours max. Like I can be to Dallas. I'm in Houston actually. So I can go to Dallas in 4 hours, and I've got family up there. So, or I just grab some extra sheets and crash on the couch or something, hey, what's available and open tonight? Okay, good. Yeah. Okay. Log it off.
How often do you have to do that? How often do you have to go to the other markets?
I would say every 2 weeks I'll go to one of the markets and I'll run around, check the properties. I try to strategically plan it. We are implementing more stuff because again, as you go in the business, I mean, here's an example. My business partner yells at me. He's like, your time is too valuable. And this is not the best use of your time. And so the other night I ran, we had a booking last minute and it's an older loft in Houston Heights. And we'd taken the air conditioner out because it'd been getting really cold. And we have to upgrade the electrical. It's a little outdated, but if you plug in the AC and you plug in the heater, it'll pop the breakers. So we just took it out. And so somebody booked a really nice 3-month booking, for $8,000. And so he said, woo. So I ran it literally in the middle of the night. I already had an AC. I swapped it out for a larger one just because we'd heard some people say, hey, it's not keeping it cool enough. And there I was at 8:30 until 9:30 at night, popping in an AC. But I think I still derive value. Like I'm going through. This is one of the hardest things. I'm going through a thing where you start offboarding slivers of all your day-to-day tasks, and you find yourself like some kind of just there, like, what do I do today? And so you have to kind of reorganize. And this is where now I'm getting back in. I'm becoming more public. Which again, thank you for inviting me here, Rich. I'm trying to get back out there, talk to more people. We do see ourselves as the ultimate, end goal for all real estate investors that want to leverage what we refer to as serviced accommodations, because we give our clients the opportunity to be, to scale their business, not be in it, and at the end of the day, it's a very simple equation. It's time and money, and you can certainly spend your time, it's going to cost you, money ultimately in the end, or you can pay money, save time and focus on what matters, and that could be either just spending time with your family or growing your empire, So, but yeah, we're now moving to a model where we in turn want to try to take more properties that are further away. We've gotten pretty comfortable with our vendor vetting process to where we can do more remote. And again, you Rich, know many people who are successful in it, and it's all on your boots on the ground team. And for us, they're not just vendors, it's relationships. We treat them like family. We have sometimes even very hard conversations with them, and again, we look at the model and the profitability and we say, hey, we want you to be a part of the profitability, but we're going to now start, for example, we had a partner who did some rental arbitrage in Alpine, Wyoming, huge, ski, snowmobile area. It's not too far from an hour and 15 minutes from Yellowstone National Park. So there's a lot of stuff. So we're trying to find new pockets where, again, then we can take and start managing there and invite clients from there down to Houston, or clients from Houston or Dallas where they stay with us out to there and say, hey, we've got new adventures. We've got new experiences. Come join us.
Sure. So what's your thought process about, your personal opinion about the difference between arbitrage and management, the pros and cons?
So I personally think, that a lot of people are doing arbitrage the wrong way. Arbitrage is not new. Arbitrage, I mean, you look at McDonald's, Burger King, Walmart, all of those companies, they don't own that building. It's a 30-year lease, and now they're investment companies, their investment groups may, but they don't own that. It's a rent-to-rent situation. And so, we see a lot of the people jumping out there buying the arbitrage list. Hey, yeah, these guys are willing. And I just see that as being retailed. There are some, I learned a lot of my arbitrage from Sean Rakijic. And so, in that, he's the guy saying, hey, you need to ask for 2 months of free rent up front. You need to ask for 8 to 15% off rent. And everybody's like, oh my God, how am I doing that? Well, because you're taking a 3-year lease, and any standard lease is going to see 2 months of dead duration anyways. And you don't take a 1 year, because in 1 year, and the best I've ever seen is 5.5 months on recouping your cost on good furniture, not cheap, not Amazon Wayfair. Don't build IKEA cookie cutter accommodations, but good furniture. And the average is 9 to 12 months, to recoup that. So why would you get a business where you just recouped at that point. So 3 year, it's a business, and you ask for that discount because you're a solution provider. And, we talked about it. The way I see going in is when you see a new building about to go up, you go there and say, hey, you guys have a great location. We've got clients that are in need in this area. We're looking for more properties to be able to service our clients. And hey, could we give you an LOI to consider maybe taking 5 to 10 units? We'll commit to 3 to start. And as you're building, then we'll take these on. And that's where, again, you're being a provider, because in those instances, whether they're apartments, whether they're townhomes, whether they're condos, whether they're single family homes. I mean, I've got a buddy here in Houston. He's doing a 60 home development that are all going to be short-term rentals, or just serviced accommodations. And so, you just go in there, like they kind of at the point where they need to get out of that construction loan or that lend, whatever loan they've got to build that development, and they need leases. So you are being a service provider. Again, you're a business, so you're getting paid a premium. They know it's a lot different than, hey, this guy could lose his job tomorrow. I could lose my job, and I still would be able to take and pay it as long as clients are staying there, and I'm charging a premium or charging for the convenience, and all the things. Hey, my job, my business model revolves around the place maintaining, the integrity and looking exactly like it is. So when we hand this back to you, it's going to be in same or better condition, and you're not going to hear us. We're not going to call you about the light bulbs and all that. We take care of that stuff ourselves, So you want to be a solution provider. You want to be of service. And so I just find when I talk to a lot of people, you look at it and it's like, yeah, well, I understand why you're not doing good, because, you paid $1,600 for a 1-bedroom apartment that should really be about $1,250, and you signed a, 14-month lease. You entered in at the, just after in January. You're going to wait till 3 months until you even see some busy seasonality. And you're sitting here doing, short-term rentals when you should just, hey, my nut is, $2,000. We'll throw in $2,500,
Well, one of the key things too, and you'll find out pretty quickly, it goes back to the relationship factor. And so if you start out with a shorter lease with no free month in the beginning, well, guess what? Every other unit you get from that landlord owner, they're going to give you the same terms you got on the original deal. And so you want to look at the big picture here and act like this is a 30-unit opportunity, even though it's 1 or 2 units, because you're going to cookie cutter. They're going to use those same terms for the larger units. And so you can't scale quickly and go live with 15 units in 60 days without having some cushion to say, well, I've at least got that 30-day runway where I don't have to pay rent for that first 30 days. It's going to take me a couple, 2-3 weeks to set up each unit. And so it's you can't go into a lease without having that first free month. That most of our leases have that in there as a part of the negotiations for that reason, because very quickly, 3-6 months down the road, that investor is going to be like, well, we've got, this one's coming up off of lease, this long-term tenant, I want to get rid of them. Well, you want to have them? I'm like, sure, bring them on, especially if I've negotiated the proper terms up in the beginning. It makes it that much more efficient and easier to kind of scale and grow from there.
Yeah, the relationship is key, because you can't be treated like a tenant. You need to be treated differently. No Airbnb or an Airbnb guest won't wait 3 to 4 weeks, 3 to 4 days to get, the stove or the washer or dishwasher fixed. Like, they'll just contact Airbnb, and now the way they are, they'll just say, hey, if you don't get this done in a certain time, boom, that's it. Even if it was a monthly reservation, that just boop, it's gone. Yeah. And hey, we gave him a full refund for the dates that the incidences took place, And not only that, but I mean, some of the biggest wins I've seen from friends that jump into it, they'll go to buildings and the whole entire introduction is like, hey, we'd love to make these units, and tell you what, we'll even take on 1 extra just to work with you, because you got 200 units or 100 units you got to sell or rent. And what better way than for us to service your clients? Hey, you liked it, you did the tour, how about you guys come and stay for the next, where are you guys staying? Stay for the next week at one of our places here at a premium, come experience it. I knew a guy, he even worked with me. He said, hey, listen, I'll give you 2 free nights a week. It's 2 free nights a month on any of my units. If you got somebody who's on the ledge of wanting to buy or to rent here, they'll come and stay in my unit. They'll fall in love with it. And that's exactly how it went. He was higher up, and they loved it. And they're like, yep, we're doing it. And then same thing is like, we're actually going to stay here while we're waiting for the furniture to get delivered. And going back ultimately to your question about arbitrage, arbitrage begets ownership in my opinion. It's an infinite loop. And so in that aspect, I think that you hit a point always as a buyer where you can't get funded. unless you, and then you can get funded, but you may have to either take terms that are less favorable and terms, those are the most important thing. It's all how the deal pencils. But, with arbitrage, you could say, hey, we got this 100,000. So instead of going out and buying, why don't we just go deploy 100,000 into 5 or 10 units? And then within a year, we're going to have $500,000, and then we'll just take that $500,000 and so you have this situation where you're going to buy more arbitrage, you're going to get more equity, you're going and buying more arbitrage. And, again, it goes back and forth. I truly believe they play into each other,
No, and I think naturally a lot of the other companies that you and I both know have that similar starting point. You grow quickly with rental arbitrage and management, frankly. And then you start getting the itch. You want to own some of that stuff yourself.
You make an offer and buying the whole building.
Exactly. So totally get that aspect. I mean, it's a natural growth and an evolution process. So back on the management.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Rob.
I just said it shouldn't be this back hazard. Like, hey, I'm just going to go rent an apartment and, we'll just won't tell anybody. I even remember, Smart B&B before it was hospitable. They used to have I loved it. It was a stealth feature. And you could actually put the times where your listings all just kind of went off. And I remember the conversation like, oh yeah, I got the stealth feature on. And, the leasing office is open from 9 to 5. And it's visible.
I knew that was an option when I used it, but they had some neat features on that platform. I had, even though I have Guesty, I put my listings on there. The Pulse deal, I think, is a real cool one. It pings the listing every couple of minutes. You also used
to get an email every day on which page your listings were on. I loved that.
Yeah, for sure. No, definitely. So back on the management side, you were telling me some cool stuff about what your partner's putting into place with kind of doing key business metrics on your management clients and helping you make decisions along the way. I mean, so we manage a lot of investors' properties as a part of our portfolio, and in the beginning, we just we weren't that selective. If they had a pulse and they had a property and they needed help, we were there to put it together. And I found out pretty quickly that may not have been the best way to do it. And over the last year or so, we've started kind of being a lot more selective and even starting to cull through some of our existing clients. But you've come up with a pretty cool way to kind of understand the economics and to help make decisions on that.
Yeah. So we started looking at tech costs, labor and tech costs combined. We know, very quickly each month what exactly our costs are associated, and that's where, again, I said, we've had scenarios where some of our properties, just you looked at it and you're like, yeah, we're making $400 a month or $500 a month, but then it's costing us this. And it's like, when you really look at the amount of time, energy, and effort, is it worth it? And it's the old age old, is the juice worth the squeeze? And then not only that, but then you'd have your clients that call it and be like, oh, my price is high, my price is too low. I saw the next door neighbor, their prices, and they're like that. And we always try to take time to calmly explain. And even our models had to change. I mean, Rich, you've been doing this enough. I remember the dates where we were happy at 60%, but we were doing 1.5 to 2 times revenue of ADR. And we were 60%. We were like, yep, good to go. Now we're having a shift, as the industry, becomes, I wouldn't say saturated. Certainly, they're getting overly saturated, but they're not with the type of properties we're concerned about, I would say. But we've now had to slowly start shifting a little bit. And this is what this industry is all about. It's a cyclical cycle. It's not, a long train track. That's not long-term rentals. That's, hey, the train's guaranteed to come into the station, but you got to wait for it. I was never excited about the long-term rental model. My dad used to be a landlord a long time ago and bought a cabin up in Maine. And I remember a few times him just telling me the horror stories about the Section 8 person he put in there. He's like, I would have been better burning it down, So, but it's funny because, again, that's what I love about this is, I mean, even with arbitrage, if you're not seeing a model where you're getting 2 to 3x rent, then it's not the right opportunity. And that's what I see a lot out there. I mean, we've got one client at a property where she bought the house $200,000 more than she should have. It was curated by somebody. It was somebody in the industry, and it was sold to them by another person in the industry, and it just doesn't pencil. So I really didn't want to take the client on, but my business partner said, hey, this would be a great case study for us. And we were very clear at the onset of just showing, listen, here's the numbers. We've got to bring in a $10,000 to $11,000 a month minimum and a 45% occupancy market, which is not possible. And just like that's breaking even. And they said, but we're going to do what we can. We're going to fill you up again with a lot of bookings, and then we'll see if we can sell this. And we'll see how we go, but sadly, again, a lot of people are upside down because, they got excited about the low interest rate, but then again, they paid $100,000 more than they should have. They didn't run it down. They didn't look at the comps. I mean, even AirDNA, we love AirDNA, but even that is just a pulse. You need to then dive in deeper, or there are actually properties making that much money. I remember looking at a property in AirDNA. It was like, oh, this is $158,000. I'm like, no way. And then I realized, well, this house was not waterfront, but it was near a bunch of waterfront properties that were all making around that. It's like, yep, thank God we passed on that one,
Yeah.
So
yeah.
You got to do your due diligence, and that's the most important part of this. But there's still, you're going to Bill's class. I mean, he's still shooting aiming for 20 to 30% cash on cash, and those are still solid investments,
Yeah, absolutely. So the lake house that we just purchased that I'm at right now is probably a 28% ROI.
Nice.
And I'm trying to get more of those deals because there's a lot of investors that are at low teens, and they're happy with that. But
I mean, there's people that are happy with 4% savings bonds, and
right.
I think that's one of the big questions to us is this, hey, everybody says, well, what is your expectation from this investment? And everybody says, I want to make as much money as possible. Well, who doesn't, but like, what makes sense? And then that's where we run our due diligence, because at some point or another, we really want to look at our client and say, okay, we'd like to make 75th to 90th percentile. That's what we're aiming to do. But let's just look at average. If we did average, and here's all your costs, and we run it down, and this is what you're left with, $15,000 net, little over $1,000. Are you okay with it? Does that make sense to you? And we want them to say yes, because then from there, we know what the expectation. That's always, of course, managing clients. That's always the number one reason why they may leave you or not, is you're not meeting their expectations well. And the financial one, of course, being the most important. Some people can put up with you if you make a whole lot of money, So,
yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I mean, that's how we look at it from our aspect.
Are you finding it more difficult to be able to push into the 75th percentile? I mean, and you probably look at the same way when we go into a new market, or we do a market analysis for an investor client or for ourselves, we always look at and to your point, do a deep dive, understand the numbers of what the average market's doing. But when we come in there, 60, 90 days out, we're wanting to, improve on those numbers by typically 20 to 30% in most cases. Are you finding that it's a little bit more difficult to do that nowadays than before? Because I used to take like a 4-bedroom house in a suburb in the middle of nowhere with a swimming pool, nice backyard, and be able to start out. The market's doing 350 a night, and five or six consistent 5-star reviews. I'm pushing up the upper pressure on the nightly rate. Before you know it, I'm at like $900 a night, where the market's doing 350, and I'm doing 15, 20 grand a month on a random 4-bedroom in the suburbs, right? And so I don't know that that's possible as easy today, and I don't know what's changed. Maybe it's a lot with the Airbnb algorithm. I don't know, but I'm finding that to be a lot more challenging. Just curious to see what your thoughts are on that.
So, as you know, Airbnb did their spring release back in May, and that changed everything. That's where I think for the most part, we saw everything change. We were expecting it coming to spring hot and heavy, and you're right. I mean, I probably, still I've managed a bunch of these condos, and I would never see $5,600 a month for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo. Of course, I think what has taken place is, there certainly has been a lot more inventory, that has come into the game. And I think what happened was a lot of it was just hosts throwing anything on with your Salvation Army and Facebook Marketplace kind of secondhand. And then, of course, there's a lot of people that went and did, the IKEA cookie cutter. They bought everything brand new, but it wasn't commercial furniture. It's the IKEA. And within about 3 months, you just start seeing the tables, everything like that bunk bed you got is all janky and shaky. And so, for us, I think the easiest way I can explain it, and it became really tough because we almost made a joke about it. We're like, it's kind of like playing football, and all of a sudden you guys are ready to go out there and start the game. Coach is like, okay, guys, let's huddle around. He's like, okay, guys, just need to update you. Hey, I want you to go out there, get the ball, and go to the end zone and get a touchdown. But here's the difference. The end zone's changed. It's no longer at the either end of the field, and we're not going to tell you where it is. You got to figure it out yourself, but go out there and get it. And that's what it was. And love Airbnb. I'm 8-year super host. I am also an Airbnb brand ambassador. I work with Airbnb alongside to help new hosts where If you jumped on Airbnb today and said, I want to host a place and it's brand new, I could be the one that pops up and says, hey, I'm Rob. I'm here to help you get you listed, And so I certainly am favored enough by them. I'm rewarded enough by them, especially being one of my biggest platform partners. But it was really unnerving, to be like, what are we doing here, guys? And, it presented a lot of opportunity for us because there was a lot of people who were like, I've been managing 4 years or 3 years or 2 years, hundreds of reviews, 4.8, what, 4.9, and just no longer visible. They're even having a hard time like zooming down into the map and going right down where their house is. And it's like, nope, not popping up. And I'm sure Rich, you may have the clients like, hey, my friends were looking on Airbnb and they couldn't find my place. And it's just like,
yep.
What do you want me to tell you? And same thing. And clients are like, hey, things are dead and empty. And we had goose eggs. I mean, and they're like, what's going on here? And like, we're trying to figure that out ourselves. And they're like, well, where are all the guests? And they're all like, lower the price. I'm like, that's not a good revenue strategy. Yeah. Like we'll come to, I'd rather lower the price in the length of stay than just, drop it down to that $99 for one night. No, I'll give you $99 if you stay a week or two. So that was really unnerving. And then they even did another release in the winter and kind of changed things, And so that's why I think they kind of reeled back, doing some benefits of like changing the, the insurance and adding pets, changing up their review cancellation, their review policy and some of the stuff. But it took us a while, and I knew $100 billion company had to be doing something. And I just looked at it and said, there's a lot of crap hosts out there, absolute hosts that, aren't picking up the phone at 2 a.m. And I understand that. And that's why we're here as a company is, hey, we'll take those 2 a.m. calls. But, I really have to think that it was them coming to a point where they saw very quickly, they maintained at that pace. And as they were, that they were going to lose their brand recognition and their brand loyalty, Mm-hmm. And so, and think about it. I had guests. I've even had ones that, guests, and sadly we fell short of meeting their expectations. And they're like, that's it. This is awesome. I'm never using Airbnb again. And it probably came from us more because most cases they're like, I want to leave and you're going to give me a full and most people are like, okay. Where we're just like, we know our terms and services. So and we went to bat with Airbnb a tons of times, but again, I just think it had to be that they were shifting their brand presence. And so in that, the easiest thing I can explain is that, you used to be able to throw any property on Airbnb and be wildly successful, and anybody could. And now they're pushing to where, again, and think about VRBO Super Bowl ad several years ago. And it was like, you're stepping and panning into the living room. There's a crackling fire. There's a chess set there. You hear kids laughing in the back. There's no people, but you hear them laughing in the background. And it just says, this is where grandfather and grandson have played their first game of chess. And that just hit me, and 20 years ago, my dad hit one of the biggest deals doing M&A, and we went on a $50,000 vacation, and we went into LA for a week, and we went to, Rosarito Beach, Mexico for 10 days. And literally I get emotional. It was one of the best times of our life. And even Thanksgiving, my nieces and nephews like, Papa, when can we do that again? And it's like, some people don't realize that we deliver dreams. Mm-hmm. People work in America 50 weeks out of the year. And even during COVID, you may have gotten that call, like the woman's like, I just need to get out of this place. I've got these four walls. And it's just like, and that's where those high rates of revenue came because, coming out of COVID, there was very few places. And I also think a lot of the hotels were shut down because they didn't know how to handle with the COVID, and the insurance company sure said, hey, we ain't covering you. We're canceling your policy until we can figure this out. But people were paying gobs of money. They didn't care, so that, so nowadays, I think it's not just about, and one of our models is we just don't rent accommodations, we deliver experiences. And I think that's what it comes down to. And Rich, I've had a client say, she's like, oh, I'm booked out months in advance. And I'm like, well, you're probably too cheap. And she's like, oh, there's no way I can get more money. I said, sure there is. Tell somebody if they book a week at an extra $100 a night, you're just going to get a chef for them for one night. And that's $500 right there. And boom, value is perceived, And so in that aspect, it's like Tiffany's got a $1,500 18 karat gold paperclip. People are still buying that stuff, and it's like, if we can do this. So, I'm a Disney kid, my dad's side of the family was in Tampa, outside of Tampa, Florida. We lived in California near Disneyland for a while. I've been to both of them 150 times between. And, Disney said it best in his experience of providing a great place to stay, wonderful food to eat, and fun things to do. And that's where we are left to be those ushers, and to, again, like I said, not just be an accommodation space. Delivered. And that's, again, the whole point, because think about it. Do you want to sit there and have a company where you just field 10,000 people for one time and that's it and they never come back? You know,
No, yeah.
You want to be able to take those people. And this is where, again, we took from 180 companies. Now we're just a little bit under 100 listings, 59 properties. But we're at this point now where we're like, we want to be able to develop a place where Rich comes and stays at our, North Dallas luxury pool property, heated pool property. And, we're reaching back out within 3 months and saying, hey, Rich, where are your plans next? And that's things we're doing now. We've got their phone numbers. We're picking up the phone. Our customer service are saying, hey, guys, what's your travel plans for this year? What do you guys got going on? Hey, what is your something we started that was something that was mentioned at IMN, where the last Miami conference, somebody says, hey, the second we get a booking, we send a dream vacation survey to our clients, our guests, and say, what does your dream vacation look like? And it's so easy, you just tapping in. I mean, one of our best inherent values we love to tie in is just giving for free, our local favorite sunrise and sunset spots. And it's like, just even that simply alone, it's free. They can go drive to it, give them the GPS pin and, and just say, hey, while you're here, let us share with you our favorite places just to catch a moment with each other.
Yeah, I think that's critical. And we get positive feedback in our reviews all the time from the little pointers that we give them for the local experience. And totally agree.
Don't go to Papa John's, go to Papa Sorizza's, and you'll see Papa Rizza's in the back flipping the. I guarantee, oh my God, and if you like it, just tell them, hey, Rob sent you, and that's they don't, I don't like the thought of, much like going to the hotel and just going down to the check-in desk and looking at the big rack of all the brochures and saying, well, where are we going to go? Because those people have money, and that's sure it could be an experience, but is it going to be an authentic and unique experience?
Yeah, for sure. So as we wrap it up here, Rob, what's the future look like with your company and you're going forward the next couple of years? Kind of what's that going to look like for you?
So we are, again, trying to focus more. We love properties that are in the right areas of 200 to 250,000. They do $60,000 to $80,000 a year gross. We also love, some of the more luxury properties that are between 550 to 600, 700, 800,000 that, we can see doing 150 plus a year. We want to, curate unique spaces that captivate our guests' attention, delivering a once in a lifetime experience, leaving them begging for the next adventure. And so now what we're doing is we're going out with our investors. We actually have some investors that are considering buying some of our current properties. And, we're also going out and raising funds. We're learning that process. One of our clients is actually a lawyer used to do asset integrity management, and he would take and raise funds to 10 million, bring them to 100 million. He's like, I love this. Let's go out and raise 10 million. I'm like, let's do it. So we really, again, we're looking very heavily, like anywhere from 15 to 30 cities, and trying to map out, based upon travel trends and everything else, like what makes sense, but still keeping in focus that these are good investments, good communities, good STR regulations. They're being on the forefront. They got capital massive improvements going on. We love like Dallas and Frisco. Frisco's got the new Universal Studios going in. It's got a $3 billion PGA campus. So we're looking at this and just saying, okay, well, if we focus on our client, our guest avatar, and if we focus on, what type of places cater to them, because they're not all going to be the same, but we want that seamless experience when they go in. That's what we're trying to do, is to develop the diverse landscape, with, again, our guest avatar in mind.
That's awesome. So I'd love to have you back sometime in the future so you could tell us about some of those new ventures. That sounds great. Exciting to kind of lay that out as a plan for sure. But I want to thank you, Rob, for jumping on, spending time with us today.
Rich, no, I appreciate it. We look forward to seeing you and your wife here soon as well.
Yeah, most definitely. And for those of you for B&B Investing Group, if you have an interest in learning more, I am here to kind of help guide investors that want to learn more about short-term rentals. And if you have more interest in learning more about that, feel free to send me a direct message or reach out, and we'll be happy to do that. So until next week, and Rob, thanks again, buddy. I appreciate it. We'll talk soon. Take care.
Thanks for inviting us. Bye.
Thanks for jumping on the BNB Investing Podcast this week. Please click on the subscribe and like button below. For more trainings, property tours, and content, you can join my BNB Investing Facebook group by clicking below. If you are ready to grow your short-term rental portfolio and maximize your monthly income, you can click on the link below to schedule a quick strategy call with Rich or someone from his team to see how we can help or point you in the right direction. Stay tuned for our next episode and hope to see you on the BNB Investing Group podcast.